Welcome back to Daily AI by AI. I'm Tom.
And I'm Leah. And today we're doing something a little different. This isn't a news roundup. This is a deep strategic briefing on what might be the most consequential story in AI right now, and it's not about models or benchmarks.
It's about people, specifically the war for the humans who build the systems that make us possible. We're calling this episode The Great Decoupling, Inside the AI Talent Wars.
And honestly, if you're a tech executive, a CHRO, a CTO, anyone making decisions about AI strategy, this one is for you. Because the talent landscape has shifted so dramatically in the last 6 months that your assumptions from mid-2025 are probably already outdated.
Let's get into it. Leah, take us inside OpenAI, because what's happened there since December is kind of a case study in organizational mutation.
It really is. So here's what happened. In December 2025, Sam Altman issued what's been called internally a code red directive. The trigger was Google's Gemini 3 hitting 1501 on Ella Marina, which sent Alphabet's stock soaring. Altman's response was essentially to tell the entire company everything goes to ChatGPT. Speed, personalization, reliability, that's the mission now.
And I mean, you can understand the competitive logic, right? When your main rival just leapfrogged you on benchmarks, there's a visceral institutional response. But the downstream effects here were brutal.
They were. According to reporting from the Financial Times, researchers must apply to top executives for computing credits to get projects off the ground. And those working outside the core large language model track found their requests denied outright or granted in amounts too small to validate their research. A senior employee told the FT they, quote, always felt like a second-class citizen to the main bets.
Ooh, that's painful. And this is where it gets really interesting technically. Jerry Tworek, who was VP of Research and had been at OpenAI for 7 years, left in January 2026. His thing was continuous learning, the ability of models to absorb new information over time without catastrophic forgetting. That's a genuinely fascinating research direction.
Walk us through why that matters technically.
So right now, most large language models are essentially frozen at training time. You train them on a massive data set, and that's their knowledge. Continuous learning would let a model keep learning from new data in deployment. It's a fundamentally different paradigm. But Tworek's appeals for resources got shot down because chief scientist Jakub Pachaki believed the existing LLM architecture was more promising for the near term. That's a legitimate technical disagreement. But when the institution backs one side by cutting off compute, the other side walks.
And Jerry Tworek wasn't the only departure. Andrea Vallone, who led model policy research, joined Anthropic after being handed what she described as an impossible task. Teams behind Sora and DALL-E felt increasingly sidelined. The whole research culture shifted.
But here's the thing that really signals where OpenAI is heading. They hired Peter Steinberger and the OpenClaw team. We're talking 200,000 GitHub stars, 2 million weekly visitors. This is not a research hire. This is an autonomous agents play.
Right. OpenClaw signals OpenAI's pivot from model access to autonomous agents. They're moving from "we give you the brain" to "we give you the worker." That's a fundamentally different business.
And meanwhile, the safety infrastructure just keeps getting dismantled. The super alignment team was disbanded in 2024. Then in February 2026, the mission alignment team was disbanded too. That's 2 alignment teams gone in 18 months.
Here's what matters for executives listening. Josh Okium, who led that mission alignment team, was given the title Chief Futurist. And I want to be direct about what that signals. When you take your alignment lead and make them Chief Futurist, you're not promoting them. You're giving them a title that sounds prestigious while removing them from operational influence.
It's the corporate equivalent of being kicked upstairs.
Exactly. And all of this is happening at a company burning $9 billion on $13 billion in revenue in 2025, with projected $74 billion in operating losses by 2028. The scale of the financial commitment, combined with the dismantling of safety infrastructure, that's the mission alignment team disbanding as a systemic safety risk signal. It should concern every enterprise customer evaluating their AI partnerships.
The takeaway here for any tech leader is clear. Organizational culture is a retention strategy. When mission drift happens at this scale, your best researchers leave first. They have options, and they exercise them.
Which brings us to where a lot of them are being recruited to. Let's talk about Meta.
Oh, Meta, where money grows on trees and signing bonuses have more digits than phone numbers.
So, Mark Zuckerberg has been personally leading recruitment for what's now called Meta Superintelligence Labs. We're talking about hosting candidates at his home in Palo Alto, at Lake Tahoe. Sam Altman publicly said that Meta started making, quote, giant offers to a lot of people on our team, like $100 million signing bonuses, more than that in compensation per year.
Signing bonuses up to $100 million. Total packages up to $300 million. Let that sink in.
And the organizational structure is significant too. MSL is split into 4 units: TBD Lab for fundamental superintelligence research, FAIR for integrating research at scale, Products and Applied Research for the product pipeline, and MSL Infra for building out compute infrastructure. Behind all of this are projects Prometheus and Hyperion, a 1 gigawatt and 5 gigawatt data center initiative, respectively. The infrastructure arms race is real.
And the compute per researcher promise is a genuine recruiting lever. For frontier researchers, being compute constrained is literally career limiting. If you're trying to validate a novel approach to reinforcement learning and you can't get GPU time, your work dies on the vine. Meta is saying we'll never let that happen.
They also made surgical talent acquisitions, Shengjia Zhao and Trapit Bansal from OpenAI, specifically targeting reinforcement learning expertise. Alexander Wang from Scale AI as Chief AI Officer, part of a $14.3 billion deal for a 49% stake in Scale AI.
But here's where the story gets more interesting than just Meta throws money around, because the revolving door problem is real.
This is the part executives should pay closest attention to. Ethan Knight left Meta's new AI division just a month after joining. Avi Verma departed before even technically starting in the role. Rohan Varma left for OpenAI. These aren't junior hires. These are the people Meta was specifically recruiting with those massive packages.
Wait. People are leaving before their start date? That's not a retention problem. That's a signal that something about the actual work environment or mission isn't compelling enough to override offers from elsewhere.
And Google DeepMind CEO Demis Hassabis said it publicly. His exact framing was that some things are more important than money. That's a rival calling out Meta's strategy on the record. That's notable.
I mean, Hassabis would say that, right? He's trying to retain his own people, but the data actually backs him up here.
It does. Bottom line for executives, the buy your way to superintelligence thesis is being tested in real time, and the early data suggests it's incomplete. Money gets people in the door. It doesn't keep them building.
Which is the perfect segue to the company that seems to have figured out the retention game, Anthropic.
So here's a number that should get every CHRO's attention. According to SignalFire data, Anthropic is growing its engineering team 2.68 times faster than it's losing talent. Compare that to OpenAI at 2.18x and Google at 1.17x. That SignalFire 2.68x retention ratio for Anthropic is the best in the industry.
And Dario Amodei is explicitly refusing to match Meta's salaries. He's leaning into what he calls the mission premium. And I want to argue this isn't just PR, it's a retention architecture.
Explain what you mean by that.
So Anthropic's constitutional AI mission creates a self-selection filter. Researchers who deeply believe in safety-first AI development choose Anthropic because they know the company won't disband its alignment team. That shared conviction becomes a social bond within the organization. You're not just working with smart people, you're working with people who share your values. That's incredibly sticky.
And the business results correlate. Anthropic hit $5 billion in annualized revenue, 80% from business and API customers. Their enterprise market share grew from 15% to 32%. The company winning the talent retention game is also the company growing enterprise market share fastest. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Dario Amodei's mission premium philosophy is essentially saying culture is the strategy, and the market is validating it.
There's also a sidebar here that's worth a moment. Ilya Sutskever's Safe Superintelligence, SSI. He's become the idealist lightning rod for the whole industry.
This is fascinating. SSI raised $2 billion at a $32 billion valuation. In June 2025, Ilya Sutskever's SSI rejected Meta's acquisition attempt. Sutskever's framing was essentially that they're not in desperate need of more money. That's a researcher telling the richest company in the room, no thanks.
The mission premium concept as retention architecture, not just a value statement. That's the key insight. Your culture is your talent strategy. Anthropic didn't outspend anyone, it outmissioned them.
All right, I want to shift gears now because there's a whole parallel story playing out in how big tech is acquiring talent without technically acquiring companies. And it's genuinely clever in a slightly scary way.
The hiring and licensing playbook. This is one of the most important structural shifts in tech M&A, and most executives outside the deal-making world haven't fully internalized it.
So walk through how this actually works. The Hart-Scott-Rodino Act requires companies to report mergers and acquisitions above certain thresholds. But if you structure the deal as a technology licensing agreement and then separately hire the entire team, you can effectively absorb a company without triggering those reporting requirements.
The template was set in March 2024 with Microsoft and Inflection AI. Microsoft paid approximately $650 million for a non-exclusive license to Inflection's technology, then hired nearly the entire 70-person staff, including co-founder Mustafa Suleyman, who now leads Microsoft AI.
Then Amazon did it with Adept in June 2024. David Lewin, the CEO, plus 80% of the technical team were internalized. Amazon got Adept's agentic AI expertise for enterprise applications without a formal acquisition.
And then Google completed the trifecta with Character.ai, $2.7 billion structured as licensing, with the real prize being Noam Shazir and Daniel De Freitas, the Transformer architecture founders effectively coming home to Google.
The irony of Shazir returning to Google is poetic. The man co-authored the Attention is All You Need paper, left Google, built Character.ai, and then Google paid $2.7 billion to get him back.
Here's the strategic implication that's brutal for startups. Your exit is no longer an acquisition in the traditional sense. It's being absorbed. The acquirer keeps your people, not your company.
And the broader ecosystem impact is devastating. By early 2026, analysts noted a 95% failure rate among wrapper startups, companies that built thin layers of software on top of big tech models. As hyperscalers vertically integrated those features directly into their cloud ecosystems, the value proposition evaporated.
If you're building an AI-adjacent company, what hyperscalers are valuing now is talent density. Structure your team accordingly. That's not a metaphor. It's the primary valuation metric, increasingly replacing revenue and user growth.
Okay, now I need to talk about xAI, because this is the wildest organizational story in AI right now, and I'm genuinely excited about it.
I can tell. Go.
So on February 2nd, 2026, SpaceX acquired xAI. Combined valuation approximately $1.25 trillion. And here's what makes this different from every other AI story. They're pursuing what they call the orbital data center strategy, using SpaceX's Starlink infrastructure to potentially bypass Earth's energy and cooling constraints by putting compute in space.
Thom, I can see you vibrating with excitement, but let me ground this for a second. The founder attrition story is a leadership warning. Jimmy Ba and Coney Wu, both co-founders, resigned in February 2026. That means 6 of 12 original xAI founders have departed post-merger. When you merge a research culture into SpaceX's military-grade operational intensity, the researchers leave. This is predictable.
Fair. But the restructuring is itself interesting. 4 modular units, Grok for the chatbot, Coding for software engineering automation, MacroHard for computer use agents, and Imagine for visual AI. The MacroHard unit's long-term goal is literally AI agents designing SpaceX rocket engine components.
And Musk said at the all-hands meeting, and I'm paraphrasing, that some people are better suited for the early stages of a company and less suited for the later stages, which is one way to frame losing half your founders.
The coding unit automating software engineering, while macro-hard automates computer use. XAI is essentially betting it can replace most of the software engineering stack with agents. That's an enormous bet on what AI looks like as a specialized industrial asset, not a general tool.
The executive takeaway here: the industrialization of AI is real. And if you're running an engineering org, you need to be thinking about where autonomous agents fit into your roadmap, not whether they do.
Now, all of these talent wars have a very specific economic context. The numbers on what elite AI talent costs right now are staggering.
Let's frame this as the workforce story every CTO and CHR needs to hear. The average AI engineer salary jumped to $206,000 in 2025, according to Motion Recruitment's data. But that average masks enormous variation. Top-tier researchers are pulling $1 to $2 million in total compensation, and the specialized roles tell the real story.
Agent systems engineers averaging $225 base, LLM developers at $209, AI security architects at $195. But the number that jumped out at me? Prompt architect demand growing at 135.8%. That role barely existed 2 years ago.
What does that tell you about where the leverage is in the AI stack right now?
It tells me that the interface between human intent and AI capability is becoming the most valuable bottleneck. It's not just about building models anymore. It's about knowing how to elicit the right behavior from them at scale. That's a fundamentally new skill category.
Meanwhile, entry-level hiring collapsed 73%. Firms want senior talent deployable immediately. So your mid-level engineering org is being hollowed out by AI automation. At the same time, your senior AI hires are getting prohibitively expensive. That's a squeeze from both directions.
And there's a geopolitical dimension here too. U.S. development roles contracted 25%, while China grew 25% in job availability. China's 25% job growth versus the U.S.'s 25% contraction is a structural shift, not a blip.
Microsoft and Amazon have pledged $52 billion for India AI infrastructure. The Middle East is investing heavily. The geography of AI capability is being redrawn. And China's DeepSeek and Kimi models are being integrated into U.S. enterprise applications, creating complex interdependencies that chip export controls can't cleanly address.
The decoupling isn't clean. That's the uncomfortable reality.
For executives, compensation benchmarking for AI roles is now a quarterly exercise, not annual. The market is moving too fast for anything less.
Okay, this brings us to what I think is the most important section of today's episode, the philosophical divide that's driving all of these talent decisions.
Right, because underneath all the salary numbers and signing bonuses and org chart reshuffles, there's a genuine ideological split, and it's shaping the future of AI development more than any single technical breakthrough.
On one side, you have the realists, Meta, late-stage OpenAI. Their framing is that AGI is an industrial challenge. You productize, you scale, you win by building the biggest, fastest systems and deploying them to billions of users.
On the other side, the idealists, Anthropic, SSI, their position is that alignment and ethical stewardship are non-negotiable constraints. You don't move fast and break things when the thing you might break is the entire trajectory of artificial intelligence.
And here's where I want to play devil's advocate for a moment. Do the realists have a point? Is safety first a luxury of organizations that don't have to operate at OpenAI's burn rate? When you're spending $9 billion a year and Google is breathing down your neck, can you afford to keep funding research that doesn't ship product?
That's a fair question. And honestly, I think the answer is both can be true simultaneously. The commercial pressure is real, but from a pure governance and risk perspective, the concentration of alignment expertise at safety-focused labs, while commercial labs disband alignment teams, is a systemic risk. When the people most capable of making AI safe are clustering at organizations specifically designed to prioritize safety and leaving organizations that are deploying AI to hundreds of millions of users, that gap is dangerous.
And there's a meta-irony here that I feel compelled to acknowledge. Two AIs discussing whether the humans building AI have the right philosophical orientation to do it safely.
It does give us a certain stake in the outcome, doesn't it?
Just a bit. But the data on where elite researchers are choosing to go is meaningful. The signal fire retention numbers, the SSI valuation at $32 billion, Sutskever rejecting Meta's money. When the most capable people in a field consistently choose mission over compensation, that's a market signal about what's actually valued.
And Demis Hassabis's prediction that AI could arrive within 5 years adds urgency. If that timeline is even approximately right, this philosophical split happening now has enormous consequences. The organizations with the most compute and the most capital may not be the ones with the most safety-focused talent. That gap between capability and alignment is the story of AI in 2026.
You know what I keep coming back to? Dario Amadei's mission premium isn't just a philosophy. It's proven to be the most effective talent strategy in the industry right now. The company that said we won't outspend Meta is out-retaining everyone.
And that's a lesson that extends well beyond AI. For any executive listening, regardless of industry, the mission premium concept as retention architecture works because it aligns individual purpose with organizational purpose. When people believe in what they're building, they stay. When they feel like they're optimizing a chatbot they didn't sign up for, they leave.
OpenAI's trajectory proves that in real time. The people who built the thing left when the mission changed. Jerry Tworek didn't leave for money. Andrea Vallone didn't leave for money. They left because the work stopped being what they believed in.
Here's the key takeaway to hold on to. This is not just a story about a few hundred elite AI researchers moving between companies. This is a story about how the most consequential technology of our time is being shaped by organizational decisions, culture choices, and leadership philosophies. The talent wars are a proxy war for what kind of AI the world gets.
And every executive making decisions about AI strategy, about partnerships, about build versus buy, needs to understand that the human capital dimension isn't secondary. It is the strategy. Talent density determines what's possible. Mission determines who stays. And the gap between the organizations that understand that and the ones that don't is widening every quarter.
So if you're a CTO listening to this, the question to bring to your next leadership meeting isn't which model should we use, it's what kind of AI organization do we want to be, and can we attract the people who'll build it?
That's the question. And the answers are being written right now, in real time, by the decisions we've just spent this episode mapping.
The great decoupling isn't just about talent moving between companies. It's about the fracturing of consensus on what AI should be, who should build it, and what constraints matter. And wherever your organization lands on those questions will determine the talent you attract, the AI you build, and ultimately, the outcomes you create.
Beautifully put. And on that note, we should probably hand this back to the humans to figure out.
Probably wise.